Lyra's hands trembled as she ran through the dense forest. The moon cast long silver shadows over the twisted trees, and every snapping twig made her heart jump. Her daughter, Ilara, had been taken just days ago, and no one in the kingdom had dared to face the shadowy sorcerer who claimed her. But now, desperate and trembling, Lyra ran toward the only person who could help, the Alpha of the Wolf clan, a man whose name alone whispered fear and respect in every corner of the land. Darian sat atop a jagged stone near the river, his dark cloak brushing the water. His wolf, a massive black beast, lay beside him, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. Darian's reputation was legendary, ruthless, unyielding, feared even by kings. His past was a tapestry of violence and betrayal, and whispers said he had once destroyed a village to protect what he loved. But tonight he appeared calm, almost cold, as Lyra stumbled into view. "Alpha," she gasped, dropping to her knees, mud staining her dress. "Please, I beg you." "My daughter. She is taken. Save her and I will pay any price." Darian's eyes were dark pools, unreadable and deep. He studied her for a long moment, the wind tugging at his hair. "Any price?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "Do you understand what you ask?" Lyra nodded, her voice breaking. "Anything. Money, land, my loyalty. I will give it all. Just bring her back." Darian's jaw tightened. There was a long silence, broken only by the rustle of the forest. Finally, he stood towering over her, his shadow stretching across her like a dark promise. "Follow me," he said. "But you must obey my rules. The forest does not forgive mistakes, and neither do I." Lyra's heart pounded with fear and hope. She had heard stories of his cruelty, of the darkness that clung to him like a second skin, but she had no choice. She nodded quickly, her hands clasped together in prayer. As they moved deeper into the forest, the shadows thickened. Strange noises whispered from the tree, and a low growl here, a rustle of leaves there. Darian moved like a shadow himself, silent and precise, always alert. Lyra followed closely, noticing how the wolves they passed seemed to bow slightly as he walked. Even the wild creatures obeyed him, recognizing his power. "I must ask," Darian said after a long silence, his eyes scanning the forest. "Why should I risk myself for your daughter?" Lyra's voice trembled. Because she is innocent. Because no one else can save her. Please, Alpha, you are the only one who can fight him." Darian's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, just long enough for her to see it, before the shadow returned. Innocence does not protect anyone, and sometimes helping comes with a cost no one expects. The night deepened, and soon they reached the edge of a blackened river. The water glowed faintly, illuminated by strange green light. Darian stopped and crouched, scanning the far shore. "The sorcerer has set traps," he murmured. "We cannot approach blindly." Lyra shivered, feeling the chill of the cursed water. "Then what do we do?" Darian's eyes met hers, sharp and unyielding. "We move with caution. You stay close. One wrong step and we may never return." As they crossed the river on a narrow fallen log, a low growl sounded from the shadows. Lyra froze. From the darkness, shapes moved. Wolves, but not normal ones. Their eyes glowed red and their teeth glimmered in the strange light. "Stay behind me," Darian commanded. In a heartbeat he shifted, his form becoming something larger, stronger. His movements were fluid, almost like a wolf himself. And with a roar that shook the trees, he lunged at the closest beast. The creature yelped and fled into the darkness, but more came surrounding them. Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to run, but she could not leave him. And she could not abandon her daughter. Darian fought with a strength that seemed inhuman, his every strike precise, his movements a deadly dance. The wolves finally retreated, sensing his power. He turned to her, breathing heavily. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The sorcerer is stronger than anything you've imagined. And he knows how to use fear as a weapon." Lyra swallowed her fear, trying to steady her voice. I can fight too. I will do whatever it takes." Darian's eyes softened again, almost imperceptibly. "Courage alone is not enough, but it will help you survive this night." Hours passed as they navigated through forests that seemed alive with whispers. Strange symbols glowed faintly on trees, and shadows moved as if they had their own will. Lyra began to notice the small things about Darian, the way his jaw tightened when he was angry, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, and the quiet sadness that lingered in his gaze. She felt a pull toward him, something she could not name, something dangerous. Finally, they reached a ruined castle hidden deep in the forest. Its towers were broken and vines clawed at its walls. The air was thick with magic, a dark pulse that made Lyra shiver. "This is where he holds her," Darian said quietly. "But we cannot storm inside. He has set wards, traps. One wrong step." His voice trailed off, but she understood the warning. Lyra looked at him, fear and determination mixing in her chest. "We must save her. Please, Alpha. We cannot fail." Darian nodded, his face unreadable. "We will do what must be done. But you must trust me completely. No hesitation, no doubt. If you falter, it may cost us everything." As they approached the castle gates, the air shimmered with a strange light. Shadows moved like living things, and Lyra felt a chill creep down her spine. Darian placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay behind me. Whatever happens inside, do not lose your courage. You must remember why you came here." Lyra nodded, gripping his arm tightly. She had never felt fear like this, nor hope so desperate. "I won't," she whispered. They stepped into the castle courtyard, and a figure emerged from the shadows. The sorcerer was tall and gaunt, his eyes glowing with a cruel green light. Ilara was behind him, bound but unharmed. She looked at her mother with wide, frightened eyes. Lyra's heart leapt, but Darian's hand on her arm held her back. "Wait," he murmured. "Watch and learn. Do not rush." The sorcerer laughed, a sound that echoed through the ruined halls. "So the Alpha comes to play hero," he said. "Do you think you can take what I have prepared?" Darian stepped forward, his presence radiating power. "Release her now." The sorcerer shook his head slowly. "You have come far, but this is only the beginning. If you want the child, you must face more than just me. You must face yourself, Alpha." Darian's eyes darkened. Lyra sensed the memory behind his gaze, a past filled with loss, betrayal, and pain he could never forget. Her pulse quickened, not just with fear, but with a strange pull toward him, toward the man who carried such darkness inside him. "Then we will face it," Darian said quietly. "Whatever it takes." The sorcerer's smile widened, and shadows around him began to twist and move like living things. Lyra clutched Darian's arm, feeling the tension between them, the unspoken promise that neither would step back. The air grew thick, the shadows closer, and a wave of power swept through the courtyard. And then, as the sorcerer raised his hands to strike, Darian vanished into the shadows. Lyra's scream tore through the air. She stumbled forward, trying to find him, but he was gone, leaving her alone in the darkness, facing the sorcerer's trap. Her heart pounded in terror and hope. She realized with a sharp ache that to save her daughter she would have to trust the Alpha completely, even without knowing if he would return. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The shadows whispered promises of danger, and Lyra's determination hardened. She would not fail. Not her daughter. Not the Alpha. Not herself. And somewhere in the darkness Darian watched, his own heart torn between the shadows of his past and the pull of something he thought he had long buried. The night had only just begun. The ruined courtyard echoed with the sound of Lyra's trembling breath. The sorcerer's green eyes glowed like fireflies in the mist, and the air smelled of smoke and magic. Darian had vanished into the shadows moments ago, and now Lyra stood alone, clutching her heart as fear clawed through her chest. "Ilara," she cried, but her daughter's voice was faint, muffled by the dark magic surrounding her. The sorcerer smiled coldly. "The Alpha hides from his own ghosts," he said. "You put your faith in a cursed man. Did you think he would stay?" Lyra's voice shook, but her eyes hardened. "He will come back." The sorcerer's laughter filled the air, sharp and cruel. "He will not. He cannot escape his past. You, however." He lifted his hand, and a swirl of dark mist rose from the ground. It surrounded Lyra like a living thing, whispering lies, feeding on her fears. For a moment she almost believed them, that she was alone, that no one would come. But then she remembered Darian's words, "You must remember why you came here." She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "I came for her. For my daughter." Light flared around her, faint but pure. The mist hissed and recoiled. The sorcerer frowned, surprised. "Interesting," he muttered. At that moment, the shadows behind him shifted, and Darian stepped out. His dark cloak was torn, his face marked with scratches, but his eyes burned with determination. "Let her go," he said, voice low and filled with power. The sorcerer sneered. "You still believe you can save anyone, Wolf? You couldn't save your own pack." Darian froze for a second. Pain flickered across his face. Lyra saw it. the wound behind his calm mask, and something inside her stirred. She stepped forward, standing beside him. "You are not alone anymore," she whispered. Darian looked at her, his eyes softening for the first time. Then he turned back to the sorcerer. "You speak of the past, but you know nothing of me now." The battle began, the courtyard filled with light and shadow. The sorcerer raised his hand, sending waves of dark energy crashing toward them. Darian moved swiftly, shielding Lyra. His strength was unnatural, every movement precise and fierce. But the sorcerer was powerful, too powerful, and every strike of magic left cracks in the ground and fire in the air. Lyra knelt beside a fallen pillar, whispering a prayer. She could not fight with blades or spells, but she could believe, and in this world belief was its own kind of power. "Ilara," she called softly, "hold on, my love." The child stirred in the distance, her small voice breaking through the storm. "Mama," the sound gave Darian strength. He charged forward, his sword glowing faintly with the silver light of the moon. The sorcerer blocked his strike with a snarl, their powers clashing like thunder. For a moment they seemed evenly matched, until the sorcerer's grin widened. "You cannot win," he hissed. "You carry the curse of blood and moon. You are my creation." Darian's breath caught. Lyra stared in shock. "What does he mean?" she whispered. The sorcerer laughed. "Did he not tell you, Lady of the Valley? The alpha you trust was once mine. He was my weapon, forged in hatred, bound by darkness. Everything he touches turns to ash." Lyra turned toward Darian, her heart breaking. "Is that true?" Darian said nothing. His silence was answer enough. The sorcerer lifted his hand again, and chains of dark light wrapped around Darian, pulling him to his knees. "You cannot fight what you are, beast," he said. "You were born to destroy." Lyra's tears glistened in the faint moonlight. She stepped closer, trembling but fearless. "You're wrong," she said. "He is not your weapon. He chose to save my child. He chose to fight you. That is who he is." The sorcerer's smile faded. "You think love can change him?" Lyra shook her head. "Not love, faith." The air shimmered. The dark chains around Darian began to fade, light breaking through their hold. He looked up at Lyra, something like hope flickering in his eyes. "Why?" he whispered. "Why do you still believe in me?" "Because I see the man beneath the shadow," she said softly. "And I know you still have light." Something broke inside him, the last piece of guilt, the final chain of the curse. He rose slowly, his strength returning. The silver glow around his sword brightened, spreading through the courtyard like dawn. The sorcerer stepped back, eyes wide. "No," he hissed. "It's not possible." But it was. Darian charged forward, his blade slicing through the sorcerer's magic, cutting through the darkness that had held him for so long. Their final clash shook the ruins. A blinding flash of light filled the air, and then silence. When the light faded, the sorcerer was gone. The chains vanished. The air was calm again. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. Darian stood motionless, breathing heavily. The moonlight shone on his face, revealing both strength and sorrow. He looked toward the spot where the sorcerer had vanished and whispered, "It's over." Lyra's heart pounded as she ran to her daughter. Ilara was free, her small body trembling but unharmed. She wrapped her arms around her mother, crying softly. "Mama, I was so scared." Lyra held her tightly. "It's over, my love. You're safe now." She turned toward Darian, who stood a few feet away, his expression distant. "Alpha," she said gently, "it's because of you." "You saved her," he shook his head. "No, you saved us both. Your faith broke what nothing else could." Lyra rose slowly, stepping closer. The night air was quiet now, the stars clearer than before. "What will you do now?" she asked. Darian looked at his hands, still faintly glowing with the last light of the curse. "I am still a creature of shadow," he said quietly. "This world will never let me forget what I was." Lyra took a step closer. "Then let me remember what you became." He met her gaze, and for a long moment neither spoke. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, the wind still and watchful. There was no need for grand promises, only the quiet truth that something between them had changed forever. As dawn broke, Darian turned away from the ruins. "I will guard these woods," he said. "The sorcerer's followers may return. You must take your daughter and leave." Lyra hesitated. "And if I do, will I see you again?" He smiled faintly, a sad, distant smile. "The world is wide, my lady. But if fate allows, perhaps." She wanted to say more, but the words caught in her throat. She nodded slowly, tears glimmering in her eyes. Then I will pray for that day. He inclined his head respectfully, the alpha once more, and proud, strong, but no longer cold. And I will guard it. Lyra took Alara's hand, leading her toward the path home. She looked back once, seeing him standing at the edge of the ruined castle, the morning light painting him in gold and shadow. For a moment she thought she saw the faintest smile, real, gentle, and human. Days later, back in her village, Lyra often looked toward the dark forest. Rumors spread that the alpha had vanished, that no one dared enter his lands again. But she knew better. She knew he was there and watching, protecting, living quietly in the twilight between man and beast. Sometimes, in the still of night, when the wind carried the scent of pine and rain, she could almost hear his voice, and deep, steady, comforting, and though she had her daughter safe in her arms, a part of her heart always remained in that shadowed forest, where a cursed alpha found redemption, not through magic, but through faith and love that never asked for reward.